Welcome to Uncle Fred's Record Museum. Well, this is it, Uncle Fred's Record Museum. I have been collecting 45s for over 50 years. I started back in about 56 or 57 when I was about 7 years old. My first record was Elvis Presley double hit, Don't Be Cruel one side, flip side, Hound Dog. And to be able to break down to you the entire details of the collection, we'll need to start over to my left. Everything is categorized by artist and by decade. And there's two categories in each decade. First, we have the superstars of the 50s. Lots and lots of great artists from the 50s, great groups. But my favorite, I'd have to tell you, this man right here, Buddy Holly and the Crickets. As you know, the Crickets were with Buddy Holly. Brunswick label was their 45s, great stuff. And then, of course, he left the Brunswick label and he recorded on his own on Carl label, the orange with the black writing. And then, of course, the tragic accident February 3rd, 1959, the day the music died. After, oh, by the way, the 50 superstars, if you had 10 or more recorded singles on Billboard, you were a superstar of the 50s. If you were a star of the 50s, that means you had between 5 and 9 charted records on Billboard. And that would be the different color of these cases through the bottom one there. Then we begin with the superstars of the 60s, starting with Herb Alpert. However, it's pretty obvious the two greatest groups, in my opinion, of the 60s. And isn't it ironic? Alphabetically, they are right next to each other. The Beach Boys, B-E-A-C-H, and the Beatles, B-E-A-T-L-E-S. The two greatest groups, probably of all time. Following the 60s, of course, there's lots of great artists. Some of my favorites were Dion, Gene Pitney, and Roy Orbison. But we get into the 60s stars, again, 5 to 9 hits, star, 10 or more, superstar. And then we get into the 70s, starting, of course, with ABBA, the group from Sweden. But isn't it ironic again? The two greatest artists of the 70s, alphabetically, where are they? Here we go. Alphabetically, Billy Joel, J-O-E-L, Elton John, J-O-H-N. Is that incredible? The two greatest artists of the 70s, right next door, just like the Beach Boys and the Beatles. So 10 or more recorded songs would be the 70 superstars, and then we get into the 70s stars, 5 to 9 charted songs. Then the 80s. The 80s start right here with 10 or more superstar artists and groups. I liked a lot of them, but I guess my favorite happened to be in the same box again. I love Cliff Richard. He was a huge, huge star in England, as we all know, and Lionel Richie. I loved his stuff on his own, even better than when he was with the Commodores. Then we get into the stars of the 80s, 5 to 9 hits. And then, of course, you'll notice there's only 4 cases of 90s music. And that's because the vinyl was dying out. And that's why I'll show you in a second what we have over here on the floor. I only have approximately 645s from the 90s. Superstars take up 1 case, stars 1 case, and all the others in 2 cases. Groups like, or people like Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, Michael Bolton, they would be in those cases. You'll notice on the floor there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases of 100 each approximately. Those are cassette singles. Those are going to be thrown in with the collection as well as the albums. They stopped making vinyl, so you couldn't get it on vinyl, so I had to buy the cassette singles. About 2/3 of those have never even been opened. Then we get into, if you had less than 5 charted 45s, I categorized you as a flash in the pan. Around for a year or so, boom, you're all of a sudden gone. And you strictly are put in a box alphabetically, starting with A-B, working your way all the way around, finishing up here with the letter Z. Following that whole section, I have some fairly valuable 45s that made the charts. If they were worth $25 to $40, they would be in those cases stopping at the bottom there with the VA through ZE. Then these uncharted, these are worthless. Those, I wouldn't give you a nickel for those. Those are uncharted 45s. Recent, probably last 20 years. $6 to $10 uncharted 45s. Then 12 to 20. Then this color here would be 25 to 45. And then these two black ones at the bottom, 50 to 80 45s, charted and non-charted, that are worth between $50 and $80. And you'll also notice there are two cases with the red coloring, comedy or novelty songs alphabetically. Songs like Monster Mash, Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kicker 5, or Napoleon the 14th with They're Coming to Take Me Away, haha. Those would be in those kind of cases. So that would be it for this section. And then following this, oh, I forgot to tell you, but this is probably the most important case I have. I put it purposely here at the end. If you notice, I skipped this black colored box. It just says A through I and J through Y. There are 150 records in this case. Every record in this case is worth between $100 and $2,500. This first one you see that Scott is zooming in on, it's called Dream of a Lifetime by the Flamingos. Let me take it out for you here real carefully. It's in nice condition. It's book valued at $2,500. Obviously it's not mint or near mint, and it has a sticker on it. But I was offered $1,400 for it about 10 years ago, but of course I didn't sell it because that's my most valuable record, and I really love the song too. Dream of a Lifetime by the Flamingos. And also I wanted to show you one more record below this one. I have two copies. Most of you know that At the Hop was a big #1 hit by Danny and the Juniors in 1958. In fact, it was the #1 song for the year. These are worth approximately $800 each in near mint condition. Mine are probably both VG plus maybe. Singular label. They did it on Singular before ABC Paramount bought out Singular. So those two records are also special to me. But the entire case has 150 records valued at between 100 and, of course, the Flamingos red vinyl. As you notice, the main part of the record museum is totally filled with cases, so I had to move these to the left over here. These three cases are simply Christmas 45s. These two, they made the charts, the Christmas charts, and this case of 45s they did not. And these two are pre-1955 and uncharted 45s with picture sleeves. However, this particular case, some of my favorite doo-wop groups of the 50s, Lee Andrews and the Hearts, Cadillacs, Five Satins, Flamingos, Harvey Fuqua and the Moonglows, and of course I always loved Eddie Cochran. And also Elvis reissues and miscellaneous 45s. Elvis, in which I graded the condition fiberless, so these are not worth much. However, very valuable cases I have. These three, these two here. The King, Elvis Presley by far was the greatest artist of all time, bar none. You can throw in the Beatles and everybody else. I don't really care. To me, Elvis was the king. In here are approximately 300 45s, all original labels. And then this case, I came up with this myself. MVPs, most valuable platters. Platter, record, 45. Pretty clever, isn't it? Elvis, those are all probably $75 on up to Roustabout. I have the promo of Roustabout from the movie on a white label. And the Beatles, all their valuable stuff, probably the most valuable ones I have would be the EPs. That first one they did on Capitol is a green color. I have two copies of that. And the second EP is not as valuable. That was on the swirl orange and yellow. So that basically sums up that. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and please email me or give me a call anytime if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.